And let's head now to Washington, where Israeli and Lebanese envoys have held direct negotiations for the first time in 40 years. The Israeli ambassador to the U.S. has said that both countries are united in wanting to free Lebanon from Hezbollah. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who is mediating the negotiations, has called them a historic opportunity. Now, despite this diplomatic milestone, Israel is pressing on with its attacks on Hezbollah positions in Lebanon. The two sides have conflicting agendas. Lebanon's envoy has only been authorized to discuss a ceasefire. Israel, for its part, isn't willing to talk about a ceasefire until Beirut disarms Hezbollah. Let's bring in Melani Cammett. She is professor of international affairs at Harvard University. How big are you seeing this moment for Israel and Lebanon?
It's certainly a major moment, unprecedented. As you said, it's been decades since talks have occurred in any direct fashion between the two countries. So it is historic in that respect. Whether the prospects are good are an entirely different question, however.
Talk with us a little bit more about that point, because, we know that Hezbollah, for its part, it has rejected these talks. It has appeared to step up its fire on northern Israel as the talks began. What can these talks really achieve without Hezbollah on board?
Yeah, it's really difficult to imagine successful talks without Hezbollah, which is an important actor in the Lebanese political scene. Of course, it is an armed group, but it is also a major political party and a major provider of social services in the country, and an integral part of the political and social fabric of the country. So it's difficult to see how anything can be negotiated without Hezbollah's support. The other thing is the conditions on the Israeli side for these talks to proceed have to do integrally with the disarmament of Hezbollah, and it's almost impossible for the Lebanese government to achieve that, even if the current government is very much in favor of achieving that and has made Hezbollah's holding of weapons illegal. It simply doesn't have the capacity to enforce that. So if that's a condition, I don't see how it's possible for the talks to succeed if Israel holds firm to those requirements.
And we're going to get to the Israeli position in just a moment, but first, just one more question, because when we look at the internal dynamics within Lebanon itself, Hezbollah's ties have soured recently with Lebanon's top political authorities. There's been much criticism of Hezbollah's decision to enter the war last month. Tell us a little bit more about the internal political dynamics that are at play here.
Yeah, this is a really important question. There actually was a poll conducted in November of 2025 by the Arab Barometer, which does very rigorous polling across the Middle East. And according to that poll, only 3% of the country held favorable views towards Israel. So this is way beyond Hezbollah's support base of people that are not feeling favorable towards Israel. There were about 25% of the population expressed support for normalization with Israel. And of that was predominantly from the Christian community, which is not unified. It's spread out across multiple different parties. But the point being that there is not widespread, overwhelming support for the notion of normalization with Hezbollah, and only 3% of the population has openly expressed favorability towards Israel. So when you look at mass public opinion, it's just not there, because many people have experienced Israeli attacks and feel threatened by Israel themselves. So there isn't favorable opinion towards normalization across the country itself, even if the government is talking about it.
Okay, I want to get back to these talks now in Washington, and as promised, ask a little bit more about the Israeli side. What do you think the best case scenario for Israel would be? And again, just to reiterate, Israel not necessarily at war with Lebanon, at war with Hezbollah. What would be a deal that would make it so that Israel would halt its campaign against Hezbollah in Lebanon?
I mean, it's tough, because I think the Israelis have been very consistent in saying they want Hezbollah disarmed. They want Hezbollah pushed up and not in the region bordering Israel or even close to the border of Israel. So how to achieve that is really hard to see, but I think that is what they're striving for. The problem is they're not going to get that unless they themselves stop attacking Lebanon. And so it's kind of a catch-22 here, but their preference would be for this to lead to the disarmament of Hezbollah. And there have been reports from the Israeli media that one of the plans that Israel is pursuing in these talks is a three-part approach to Lebanon, whereby the bottom 8 kilometers bordering Israel would be occupied indefinitely by Israel to prevent Hezbollah from operating there and to take matters into its own hands to disarm Hezbollah. So if that has credibility, if those reports have credibility, that may be one outcome that they're seeking in the near term, not to mention other gradations of Israeli control farther up beyond that 8-kilometer border buffer zone.
And there are hundreds of thousands of people who have been, uprooted amid that effort that you're articulating there. This move that you're referring to, some Israeli officials saying that, it's a so-called security zone that is being created. What do you think happens next in those areas? Because, the Israeli defense minister, for his part, says that this area needs to be demilitarized.
Yes. My expectation, this isn't necessarily what is good for everybody in the region, but my expectation is that you're going to continue to see this situation with Israeli incursions into Lebanon, with Israeli occupation.
Sorry to interrupt, but does that include boots
Yeah.
on the ground, do you think? Do you think we're talking about, Israeli ground troops potentially entering this area?
Well, they're there already. As we speak, there's a battle over the southern Lebanese city of Bin Jabail between Hezbollah forces and Israel. So there are boots on the ground, and there actually have been for some time. I was there last summer in the south of Lebanon, and there were Israeli boots on the ground in parts of Lebanon in 5 different places. So I do unfortunately expect that situation is going to continue, because I don't see how the Lebanese state at this point is capable of unilaterally disarming Hezbollah. And I think that could also lead to more fractionalization within the country as well.
And, just finally, before we go, can you put this into the broader regional picture for us? Iran is saying that an end to the war in Lebanon is a precondition to talks with the United States. There is really a lot riding on diplomacy at this moment. How do you see the various scenarios playing out?
Yeah, the Lebanese government has been careful to say, look, we are not the puppet of Iran. We are going to negotiate our own arrangement with Israel. And Iran has been making this its own condition. So I think Israel is not going to accept that Iran and Lebanon are linked. Lebanon is on its border, so it regards that in a different way as it does its relationship with Israel. So I don't think that effort is going to succeed to try to link the two, that effort on the part of the Iranians. But certainly this is a much larger part of what is effectively a regional war.
Melani Cammett, appreciate your insight. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.